The bill heard by Parliament today finalises the transfer of interest from Gibraltar Residential Properties to GIC Limited, with the income of £165 million to be used to fund further housing estates, as announced in the budget. Fabian Pigardo said he would not ask the House to vote on the final bill today, as he had been too busy to brief the opposition beforehand as promised, but that the government had agreed with those purchasing the equity that the bill would be passed by the end of July. Mr. Pigardo said the deal meant the investors would be bound by exactly the same rules as the GRP were, in much the same way as when a bank sells a mortgage portfolio.
A dead asset which is financed by our community and was not otherwise accessible to our community is now being released to fund more new, affordable homes for our community. The capital value and growth of assets that we created for one generation of home purchasers is now being used to create an asset for the next generation of home purchasers. And this is being done at absolutely no cost or risk to the original home purchasers.
Leader of the opposition, Elliot Phillips, said the GSD could not support the bill without seeing the detail. Roy Clinton went further, saying the bill itself amounted to mere tidying up following a much wider transaction. And Daniel Feetham said he could not support the bill for several reasons, among them his party's stance on public borrowing.
What we need to know in the second reading of the bill is about the principle of it and why this bill is even required. And it is patently obvious this bill is required because of the wider transaction. And to the state, Mr. Speaker, the wider transaction has not been explained.
While the government and the Chief Minister in particular described this as a sale during the course of the budget speech, this is a very complicated structure to allow the government to effectively borrow £165 million using the 50% share that it owns through GRP in these estates as effectively collateral, as security.
In response, Fabian Pigardo said Mr. Feetham's intervention had illustrated that the GSD had made up its mind not to support the bill, ahead of receiving the promised detail. Mr. Pigardo said there's nothing wrong with sophisticated financial engineering and asked the GSD to look at the transaction without cynicism. He and Albert Isola also praised Sir Joe Bossano for the creation of the first co-ownership schemes 3 decades ago. The bill was passed at second reading by government majority, with the GSD voting against and Marlene Hassan Nahon abstaining. It will return to Parliament for committee stage on Tuesday morning at 10.